There's a lot of candles lit today. I was preparing for a Bible study, actually, for a nursing home with the hospice work that I do, which I will be retiring from here in about a month. But I came across a passage, because I read so many different sacred literature these days, but there was something in 2 Timothy that struck me, hence the title, Stir It Up. And in 2 Timothy, verse 1, 5 through 7, it says, I am reminded of your sincere faith. This is Paul talking to Timothy. A faith that lived first in your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice, and now I am sure lives in you. For this reason, I am reminding you to rekindle the gift that is within you. For God did not give us a spirit of fear, but rather a spirit of power, of love, of self-discipline. Now, I was reading that, and I was thinking about compassion. And what I put down was Paul is talking to Tim, young Tim, about a gift that was placed in his heart. And apparently something or some string of things caused Timothy's gift to die down. It's there, but barely distinguishable. And so he's encouraging the young Tim to stir it up. Now, when I came up with that insight, I could relate to that, especially with compassion. Because sometimes life can hit you so hard in so many ways, you start wanting to metaphorically put covers over your head and just deal with it later. I've had to really step back from social media a lot because of that. All the various noises that are on social media. I want to know just enough to be aware, right? Acknowledge. But then I want to focus on what I view as the light and the role that I play and what small way that might be in this city. The metaphor literally means to rekindle anew, and I love this. To rekindle anew the flames of fire. To shake the ashes off that fire that is already in you, so a new blaze of fire can be clearly seen. Stir it up. Now, it's interesting, when I was having coffee with a friend quite some time ago, it was winter, and we meet in Broad Ripple, and there's Rusted Moon, sporting goods store. And they have a fire pit outside, which is a perfect marketing tool because of the smell of the fire pit and the flame. And the guy went out, and I noticed the flame was dying down, and sure enough, he had a larger, it looked like a piece of wood, and he was doing this in the fire. He was stirring it up. And I thought, perfect analogy. Stir it up. You can't stand off from a fire that has died down and command it to flame up. You must get involved with it. Move it around. See what is there. Assess what is needed. Knock the ashes off to reveal the hot spots. Challenge yourself. Search around internally and externally for your gifts. Tune up your ear to listen. You could either say to the voice of God, or often I say to the voice of love. Tune out those voices and choices that stand in opposition to that voice. You need to find your creativity again. I believe there's great strength in creativity. And I believe everybody has that creative spark in them. You don't have to be a professional artist to do that. Find your creativity again. Dream again. Vision again. It's true for individuals. It's also true for faith communities, for churches. Sometimes we need to stir it up a little bit more. Don't let traditional things be a barrier to stirring up the gift that is in you. So for today's purposes, I'm talking about that gift of compassion that we all have, or we did have. We all have that inside. But things like don't let age and time and physical disability and a lack of resources keep you from that. Your destiny is in those coals. I believe that firmly. They are still burning. Passion is still there. You just need to shake off the ashes and stir it up. Now, I've come to see that one of the greatest challenges of being alive right now is to witness the injustices and deep division in our country and not allow it to extinguish our light. It's important to feel it all, I believe. To feel the pain, to feel the fear, to feel the anger, to feel the sadness, and in time continue to be used as instruments of peace, being a voice for the voiceless, speaking truth to power, and taking a bold stand for freedom for all, everyone. It means having the courage to have a compassionate heart while living in this world. One of my favorite writers from long ago, Henri Nouwen, he said this about compassion. Compassion asks us to go where it hurts, to enter into the places of pain, to share in brokenness, fear, confusion, and anguish. Compassion challenges us to cry out with those in misery, to mourn with those who are lonely, to weep with those in tears. Compassion requires us to be weak with the weak, vulnerable with the vulnerable, and powerless with the powerless. Compassion means full immersion in the condition of being human. And I think that is so important these days, because I'm not taking any stand politically at all. But I have plenty of friends that are fearful of their lives, fearful if they're going to be able to stay in the country, fearful if they're going to be judged, fearful if marriage equality is going to be turned over. And rightly so. And all I can do is hear their pain and say, I got your back. I don't know what else to do, don't know what else to say. But when I saw that quote out of a book I had from Henri Nouwen, who passed away many, many years ago, he was a Harvard divinity prof, that really spoke to my heart. And I said, Richard, you talk about this, how are you doing with that? And so I'm trying to be even more aware of that, no matter where I go, because as we talked about the last time, I think with grief, no matter where we go, right, a store, Trader Joe's, what have you, chances are somebody close to you in that aisle is experiencing grief. So we need to be aware of those kind of things. We need to be umbrellas of love. I think every faith community needs to be an umbrella of love, a place where people can come and feel safe and not be judged. It's needed now more than ever. And as I said probably before, and if I didn't say it, I'll say it now, the churches that do that are the churches that are going to grow. Because also I read a statistic by somebody recently that loneliness is at an all-time high. I guess it didn't kind of surprise me. There's a false sense of, friendship in social media. Oh, I have so many friends. Well, how many of those do you know? And the answer is, well, not many. And we don't talk to one another much anymore. I mean, even my kids and I, it's texting constantly. And I noticed somewhere in my family, we stopped sending cards. It's now texts and emails. And so we've kind of lost touch with humanity to some degree. And so I thought about some experiences in my life. And before I cue up Mildred, and I didn't have a photo for this, I remember on one of my trips to Haiti, I've been to Haiti 4 times, and I met a guy named Denny Claude, and he and his wife and his 3 daughters were just adorable in the city of Grand Gua of Haiti. Now, I came over there, right, as one of many Americans to try to help out, to assess needs, to see what financially we can do. Well, there's always a need for finances in Haiti. It's totally changed now with the violence that's taking place, unfortunately. And I lost touch of Denny since the earthquake happened many years ago. I still like to think he's alive somewhere, but if not, out there, he probably is. But I remember I was kind of nervous. It was my first trip being anywhere like Haiti. I was away from my family at the time. My kids were much younger. And I think he sensed that. He was showing compassion for me. And he invited me to his house away from the team. He wanted to show me his home that he was so proud of. And I said, Denny, I would love that. And he says, oh, we make meals for you too. And I would love that too. I had no idea what the meal was going to be. And I walked in, and his home was no bigger than my living room. But I tried not to let the tears flow down, tears of joy and tears of, this guy is giving me everything. He doesn't even know me. He's helping me not feel so lonely. And I was really struck by that. And I could talk more about that, but for the sake of today, I want to talk about Mildred. And there's a photo of Mildred we're going to put up on the screen. There she is in all her glory. That was taken in 1987 in Brownsburg, Indiana. Now, I lived in Brownsburg. I was ordained at a church in Brownsburg. And even back then, Brownsburg was a pretty nice community. And you never really saw what we would call street people in Brownsburg. But I would notice as I was driving down, and this is back in the day of Burger Chef. How many remember Burger Chef? That dates the story. There was a Burger Chef across the street from the American Legion in Brownsburg. I forgot what Burger Chef is now. It's another little fast food restaurant, I think. But I would notice a lady pushing a shopping cart, always looking down, and like it was filled with things she collected. And I just thought that was interesting. Did I stop and ask how she was doing? Oh no, I had important things to do as an associate minister. I was on my way running appointments, and I would dutifully pray for her as I drove by. One particular day, though, I walked into Burger Chef to get some coffee, and I noticed Mildred sitting in the back booth. And I walked up to her. Again, she was facing down, looked like she had hot chocolate. And I said, "Ma'am, my name is," and I told her my name and where I was from. "Do you mind if I sit down?" And she went, I mean, she just kind of nodded. And I sat down and tried to strike up a conversation, could never get her to look at me. But that started very slowly a process of her beginning to start trusting in me. And I finally got involved, a friend of mine, Sandy, involved. And I said, "Sandy, there's this lady that I think needs a lot of help. And I know a lot of people have kind of made fun of her and called her a bag lady and all of this and that, but we can't keep doing that." So Sandy took it upon herself in a book study group to befriend Mildred. Well, what we found out is that the rackety old house that Mildred lived in, her wheelchair-bound brother, Paul, also lived there. And somehow they fell through the social safety net. And they were just barely getting by. They had no other family. And so what transpired and what was so powerful for me is over a period of time, by people just loving on them and loving on Mildred, I saw such a powerful transformation take place. It literally changed my life. Thank God I still have that photo, as good as it is, of Mildred to remind me of this. I remember one Sunday when I went into church, Mildred had a little cover over this little dish, and now she's looking at you, but she still stuttered. And she said, "Pastor, I have a gift for you." I said, "Mildred, what is it?" She said, "I baked you a chocolate pie." And it sloshed around in the bowl, you know. And I didn't want to offend her, so I said, "Oh, Mildred, that looks delicious. How about if I take that home and I'll have a piece later?" So I put it away on a shelf and all that, and I took it home. But it was such a beautiful transformation taking place. But here's the point I wanted to make with Mildred. Just by compassion, the senior pastor, Larry Belleville, I share his name. I assume he's still alive, but he had a heart of gold. He became guardian of that family. We had a lot of well-heeled people at our church, and they were able to sell their house for a great amount of money to the American Legion. And we were able to put Paul and Mildred up into the nicest assisted living in Hendricks County at the time. And it was wonderful, and people would pick her up and sometimes pick Paul up. He was a little more hesitant to do those things, but Mildred loved the social outlet. And it was a beautiful story. Now, fast forward to homecoming. Homecoming in a small town, back then Brownsburg was a little smaller than it is now, is a big deal. You got the fire truck and the football players, and you got the convertible cars and the homecoming queens and the princesses, and one by one they're going by. Now, at the time, my oldest son, who's 6'1", a big guy now, he's a little guy then, we had this little thing about fighting for Tootsie Rolls. And so when they would toss out candy to the crowd, we would kind of like jump for it and try to fight for the Tootsie Rolls. So as I'm doing that, we're roughhousing a little bit, I'm on my knees on the ground, and I happen to look up, and I see a name of an assisted living on a convertible. And I said, oh, look at that, assisted living. They had a little homecoming queen thing. And I looked in the back seat, and it was Mildred. Mildred was in the back seat, a crown ready to hop off her head. There was no Princess Di with her. It was almost like a howdy Minnie Pearl kind of a thing going on. She was beaming. And I saw everybody around me saying, oh, isn't she adorable? Isn't she so cute? And I know they had no idea who she was. The woman they would make fun of. And what I heard in my heart was this: I'll love you no matter what. I'll love you if produces problems. I'll love you no matter what produces prophets and kings and even homecoming queens. And I thought that was so beautiful, the transformation. Just love and compassion. Because people aren't experiencing that enough. It sounds so simple, but I am so passionate about that now, especially now in our country, that we be aware of people's needs. We be aware. That's why when I passed out those bags I got here from the church last time, it did more for me than happened to be a couple of different young people. They were women. And I gave it to one gal, and she looked at me like, you're kidding me, right? I said, no, it's yours. I have a blessed day. I wish I could have done more. But I drove away thinking, wow, that's all it takes? What if everybody did one little thing like that more and more? How powerful that would be. The Jesuit priest Teilhard Desjardins wrote, after we've mastered the winds and the waves and tides and gravity, we will harness for God the energies of love. And then for the second time in the history of the world, humanity will have discovered fire. As we watch what is now unfolding in our country, our hearts are telling us that it's time to raise the temperature of love. It's time to create a transformation that lifts our community and country into a greater expression of love. We all need to be voices, each in our own way, that help fuel the fire of love and compassion in action. And I'm talking about a deep love and compassion for all creation, including Gaia, Mother Earth. We need to be taking care of this planet better than we are. Throughout history, it has taken desire and vision, not safe, predictable, acceptable, and status quo thinking to spark breakthroughs, shifts in consciousness, revolutions, and renaissances. And by the way, with renaissances in history, it's always been the artists that were first. I am so passionate about using art for the purpose of making a difference in the world. So, a free plug to my friend Kathy Morris, Arts with a Purpose. That's what they're doing right now all throughout this central Indiana area, providing artists for free in various places, orphanages, senior centers, homes, prisons. They're doing great work there. So, the worship of convention has not yet led to astonishment. Only enthusiasm born of love and compassion conceives of brighter worlds to live in. So I want to share this reading at the end. It comes from Watola Tromer. And as soon as I saw it, I fell in love with this. So listen to these words. So I can't save the world. Can't even save myself. Can't wrap my arms around every frightened child. Can't foster peace among nations. Can't bring love to all who feel unlovable. So I practice opening my heart right here in this room and being gentle with my insufficiency. I practice walking down the street, heart first. And if it's insufficient to share love, I will practice loving anyway. I want to converse about truth, about trust. I want to invite compassion into every interaction. One willing heart can't stop a war. One willing heart can't feed all the hungry. And sometimes, daunted by a task too big, I ask myself, what's the use in trying? But today, the invitation is clear: to be ridiculously courageous in love. To open the heart like a lilac in May, knowing freeze is possible and opening anyway. To take love seriously, to give love wildly, to race up to the world as if I were a puppy, adoring and unjaded, stumbling on my own exuberance. To feel the shock of indifference, of anger, of cruelty, of fear, and to stay open. To love as if it matters, as if the world depends on it. And I will add, because it does. Blessed be.